the Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited. All right. Let's go. Let's go. Blessings, brothers and sisters, throughout the four corners of the earth. Wednesday night, it started with Peace FM.
The East is where we're from.
The East is where we're from.
The 12 tribes of Israel.
Come on.
In 721 BC, the Assyrian king,
He took us down, we fell.
with the great escape we went through the Euphrates. The Lord held the waters still, to a land where no mankind dwelt. We went,
The 12 tribes of Israel.
the 12 tribes of Israel. So we be
Hit the like button. Come on.
Cubans, from Puerto Rico.
Naphtali from the house of Hawaii.
The Lord is calling back Israel. From Panama,
Gad, the North American Indians.
Simeon, the Dominicans.
Our highest gathering Israel.
The Arabs and Africans told us,
At gunpoint.
together our wives and children then sold us.
Yes, brothers and sisters. I'm Elder Rawchaa of the Gathering of Christ Church, here with our weekly broadcast. And boy, do we have a broadcast lined up for you. Please, y'all know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe as you come into the broadcast. Please hit the like button. Blessings. And for the few of you who missed the earlier broadcast and probably didn't know I did an impromptu one, you don't want to overlook the video I did today concerning the weather and how it's linked to the 10 horns written in the book of Revelation. While people are going mad, stuff being sprayed in the air, Florida is actually passing bills in an attempt to stop geoengineering. And in the bill, it says weather modification. What ill effects is having on us? Is there an ill effect psychologically with what's coming out of the air? And some of what we might take through the pharmaceuticals, who knows? But the Floridians and the Senate is trying to get in front of it because they want to get it out. They want to stop the chemtrails in order to see whether or not we will have a more healthier outcome. And the only way to do so, America would have to go a time without the chemtrails, but yet I digress. All right. So again, if you missed it, make sure after the broadcast, tap into A Gathering 144 and look at our earlier broadcast that I did earlier on weather modification. I would like to say all praises be to the Most High. In the name of Yeshua, I'm Elder Rawchaa of the Gathering of Christ Church, and I have a few guests in the building with me to discuss this topic. And of course, we're going to open up for Zoom in case you would like to chime in. Next week, we will have a new phone number with the phone queue, guaranteed, where you can call in and interact like we used to do during Blog Talk. All right. And I thank you, AC, for coming up with a solution so that we can have that same interaction. People in the queue waiting, and maybe we can get Sunshine back in the mix now that she will be able to call in. Well, the guest we have on the scene coming all the way from the UK, and I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks, none other than Elder Rawchaa. Shalom, my brother.
Hey, shalom, Elder. Blessings. Good to be here. Well, good to be here on the radio. I don't know about the UK, but this weather is not really the one for me. You get me? Well, I'm getting old. It's cold weather.
Well, especially with the weather modification. But all in all, hopefully when we're there during first fruits, the Most High can have us bring some sunshine. All right.
Yeah, man, that'll be great.
All right. It's not, I'm praying hard right now. There's flower. I'm going to tell you what they're doing is confusing even nature. The lilies tried to come in outside the building, and then the wind came and blew all the petals off the lily tree. So even nature cannot adjust to what's going on, and that's why everyone need to look at that geoengineering. And we're going to have a conversation tonight, but I want everybody to know you're going to be on. Anytime you're ready to chime in, just say, Elder, I have something to say. But at least let's get some stuff out first. And what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to allow some of the videos to play without stopping it every other second so that brothers and sisters don't get frustrated, all right? So they don't know sometimes you have to stop it in order to overcome the copyright infringement. They don't understand that sometimes it's intentional, that if you play something through all the way, that's like taking content from another channel. That's why I interrupted sometime, but I'm going to try to do it less tonight so that the points can actually resonate through as we break down this particular topic tonight. Oh God, how did men and women become enemies? Well, hold tight, God. I'm going to bring you in a moment, right?
Yeah, no problem. I'm here.
All right. And none other, yes, right, Elder Lawya. How you doing, sir?
Shalom, sir. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm blessed by the Almighty, and thanks for your presence and all you do in this continual work. We're in it to win it, and get your arm bearing ready, get your fingers ready to go through those scriptures, because I'm going to need your insight on solutions for this particular topic. All right?
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed.
All right, let's get it ramped up. Let's get it ramped up. Hit the like button. All praises be to the Most High God of Israel. In the name of Yeshua, I thank the Most High for another evening to come before you all. Now, how did men and women become enemies? Are we under an engineered program that would have us go against ourselves, our own families, our own values? And if so, why? And if so, why? On top of that, how can we break the psychosis off of us that leads us to see each other as enemies? What is the solution to resolve it before the very end? Right? That and more we'll be diving into with this particular subject tonight. And we're going to also go into the social engineers who came up with the plan to have us fight each other at the very end of this. Right? dovetailing off of what I've discussed earlier, Elder Lawyer, if you can, when I say earlier, when I broke down the geoengineering, that at the very end, it seems the whole world, it seems that at the very end, the whole world would go mad, where people would be going against each other, leading to total division within the earth. Why is that so? Well, Elder Lawyer, I need you to go to 2nd Ezra real quick. I pulled this out earlier, but I think it's apropos to actually start it off from the scripture that I brought forth earlier. All right?
Yes, sir.
Right? We're going to start, Elder Lawyer, if you will. Let me see here the Bible. 1 second. Let me straighten this out here. All right. This is one layer that I didn't fix yet. There it is. All right. It's apropos that we pick up from where I left off and try to come to a conclusion of how did men and women become enemies. Okay. And we're going to deal with it from what? A social engineering viewpoint. It's easy to point to each other, this is what's wrong with men, and this is what's wrong with women, without identifying the hidden hand. Now, once the hidden hand is identified, and we decide to operate under the roles Satan socially engineered us to have, right? Then we can no longer blame anyone outside of ourselves. And that's what this is about. Everyone is choosing sides right now in this last battle. And only the strong in Christ that has a foundation will make it through this. Hence the reason I'm having this topic laid out tonight. Elder Lawyer, if you will, let's go to 2nd Ezra 13 and let's start with the 29th verse.
Yes, sir. 2nd Ezra 13 and 29.
Yeah.
Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth.
Deliver who? The lost tribes of Israel. The whole financial market, the stock market, the whole trade market was set up, which is the world economy, was set up off of the curses and servitude of God's people. The whole global market was established on slavery. So what happens if the children of Israel begin to awaken out of sleep? It will destroy everything. The whole economy and all nations are complicit in it to participate in the riches that come from who? What? The servants, the children of Israel that were cursed according to the Bible, to be under the curse until deliverance. Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth. Speaking of God's chosen people, the awakening, read.
And he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth.
Read.
And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one realm against another.
And one realm against another. Spiritual warfare. Every nation has a God allocated to them, which is a power or a prince over every nation, but it's the God of the Hebrews through Christ who reigns over us. What happens if all these nations come into one country and bring all these separate races, all these separate ideologies and cultures based upon the God they serve, and bring it all into one place? Chaos and realm war. all different people fighting over who can enslave or financially aggrandize themselves off of the children of Israel. This is what you get as God's people suffer on the bottom. So it's a realm war too. They're bringing spirits with them, and everyone is fighting over the little nickels that the governments are giving them to rule over us. All right? 32, read it.
Yes, sir. Verse 32. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the sign shall happen which I showed thee before.
The signs shall happen which I've showed thee before. Read.
And then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest as a man ascending.
So it doesn't matter what people believe. It was prophesied. Christ, our King, will return. Right? So the whole world is in uproar because they know, according to Psalms 83, that all of their world systems cannot sustain if there isn't what? Complicity amongst the lost sheep of Israel to serve them. And now the Most High began to awaken in us. And guess what? It's disturbing the economy, and they're in panic. They're throwing everything they can to keep what? To keep us at odds even with one another so that they can now sustain the time they have to rule on earth. Hence the reason why we cannot participate no longer in what? In their social engineering that leads man against woman, woman against man, and they're throwing everything out there too to keep us distracted while they have a plan in place to destroy us all. Hence the reason I'm going into this topic. Oh God, how did men and women become enemies? Because when you break this down on the minute level, you destroy all mankind by destroying the union man and woman. Man and woman on earth is the image of God. So at the end of the day, we have to understand that we who believe in God can no longer participate in this social engineering. They had to program us to operate contrary to nature. Hence the reason why when we get past our teenage lives and our 20-year-old and the 20s and the 30s and get up in age, people become depressed, miserable. They feel cheated. Why? Because they've taught us to operate in the world outside of the nature the Most High have given us, and there's no peace there. Hence the reason, well, what are we going to do? Well, why don't we just fix what we broke? Right? They could easily do that. Well, let's push the traditional values and the traditional roles to get this thing back in order to combat the mental illness that have come through a changing of sexes or dynamics. They could do that. They could easily reel this thing back and say, you know what, we need to start pushing what have gotten us here up until this time. That every man and woman has a role, an inherent role, according to their nature. But instead of doing that, no, let's compound it. Let's not just have the confusion between man and woman who can't get together. Let's throw everything else in the middle too. Okay? Where everybody become fluid. No one, there's a 30 genders. Right? A man can become a man. A woman can become a woman. Only to do what? Only to cause more confusion while they plan to destroy us all. Now, on the screen here. We're going to go through it. I'm going to have a conversation concerning it. On the screen. Let me get this here. Make sure I have everything set up here. One second, folks. I got to get one thing. Here he is. Yeah, there it is right here. Carol Quigley. Bear with me. There he is here. The American historian. How did we get here? How did we become socially engineered against nature? All right. On the screen, there's a man. Okay. His name is Carol Quigley. All right. Harvard University professor, historian, professor at also Georgetown University. Now check out his body of work. The evolution of civilizations. So he's studied past civilizations on ways of controlling the population. Also, in his books, how to socially engineer a society where the elite are safe from the masses so that they don't come together and destroy the order from one generation to the next. So we're talking social engineering here, playing with people's minds. The evolution of civilizations, an introduction to historical analysis. And this is real good right here. This book, this is one of the elite's main books when it comes to control over the slave populace. The Anglo-American establishment. The Anglo-American establishment. These are those of high academia who advise presidents and all that when it comes to controlling the minds of the population. How the Anglos or Esau can stay in position at all costs, even if they cause chaos that will become detrimental to the future of our society, even if it will affect their children. All right? Now we're going to hear what they have to say. Even if it will affect their own children negatively, they must do it anyway. And what happens when it begins to affect their children negatively? They'll just bring in a new pool of what they call Anglos that have been cultivated from the grassroots of Europe, like Ukraine, to come in and replace those who they were seeking to destroy to continue the Anglo line. See how this works? But let's go into it. Oh God, how did men and women become enemies? I hope you all can hear this clearly real quick. And I'm going to play as much as I can through this without interrupting. And we'll have the closed captions on, so y'all could really understand what he's saying, all right? And I have to give it up to Black Gnostic Speaks. He was able to cut this up into clips to make it easier to understand how we've gotten to where we are, where man and woman are at total odds with one another, right? 1976. Listen to this. And elders, I need y'all to hear this. If y'all have to write things down in case there's some points you want to chime in with, Make sure you have a pen and pad ready so that we can have our own analysis on what they've done. Why am I going to get the like button? Now, why am I going to 1976? Well, they were afraid of what was coming out of the black movement or the rise of Judah here in America through the civil rights movement. And the psychologists, their doctors, their professors of academia, even religious leaders that they have amongst their elite, all came together and said, we're going to have to intervene. If we allow them, as we are witnessing right now, strong traditional families who believe in a cause, mainly believing in God and that Bible, they will multiply as the moral point for the whole earth, the moral standard, and eventually they're going to overtake us. They're going to overtake us. What's coming out of the civil rights movement is above anything we've engineered thus far. It doesn't matter if Martin Luther King was assassinated or whatever, or what happened to Malcolm. The idea of a traditional people who believe in God standing together to oppose us, if it's left unchecked or undisturbed, they'll overtake us. So our whole aim is to what? Socially engineer this where they'll regress instead of progress. See? They must regress to the point of beast. And we'll have to socially engineer that into their culture. Or they will progress, which is the normal stage of evolution, if they're left alone. Right? So check this out. Fair use for educational purposes only. Let's hear what the historian Carol Quigley has to say. Okay? Fair use.
There is a basic assumption that only two kinds of interests or entities operate in the area of political action. That is, individuals and the government. There have been numerous books published with such titles as Man versus the State. I know two of those. They both appeared, I think, in 1960. We hear about big government as a threat to the individual, and so forth and so forth. Conservatives now are telling us that we must curtail government, cut government spending, cut government powers, reduce government personnel for the sake of making individuals more free. Liberals, on the other hand, are still telling us, as they have for a long, long time, that in order to make individuals free, we must destroy communities. By communities, I mean villages, ghettos and cities, ethnic groupings, religious groupings, anything which is segregated. We must destroy them.
Hold. I have to stop right there. I'm going to play that back again. Liberals, folks, are and were the KKK, hanging us, coming against us at all odds. The Democrats, they didn't become a friend party until the Civil Rights Movement, where they tricked us into believing that the civil rights was for us, but it was only now, in hindsight, only allowing the nut jobs and those who always sought to destroy us, allow them more access to dictate what happens amongst our community. What was their answer? Let's hear what the liberal plans were saying amongst academia behind closed doors. The liberals, Democrats, were saying what?
Liberals, on the other hand, are still telling us, as they have for a long, long time, that in order to make individuals free, we must destroy communities. By communities, I mean villages, ghettos, and cities.
Villages, ghettos. Elder Lawya, get me that in Maccabees where Antiochus says we must become one people.
Yes, sir.
By communities, I mean villages, ghettos, and cities, ethnic groupings, religious groupings, anything which is segregated, we must destroy them.
Anything that's segregated, we must destroy them. So what came out of desegregation? The plan to destroy us. Democrats. Now these folks understand, back when in 1976, films like this wasn't readily available for the layman, for the everyday person. In 76, that was before a lot of VCRs and all that. You would have to have what? One of those turning reels in a movie projector in a screen to see stuff like this. It was only amongst the elites that stuff like this was actually viewed upon by those of academia. Okay. In 76, people were still going into drive-in movies where the films were showing outside. Well, guess what? It was the elite looking at this while we were looking at Sanford and Son. Okay? Let's do it again.
Anything which is segregated, we must destroy them, so that all individuals would be, if possible, identical, including boys and girls.
Including what? This was 1976. The liberals would have to destroy our communities where everything would become interchangeable, even boys and girls. Lord, have mercy. Now, how can you get to the point of destroying boys and girls if you don't first turn the men against the women and the women against the men? But come on, I'm going to do it one more again. This is education here for you. So are we going to fall into being the ones who are geo-engineered against ourselves, psychologically engineered to hate one another, not realizing that they planted the thoughts in our mind to hate one another?
Ghettos and cities, ethnic groupings, religious groupings, anything which is segregated, we must destroy them. So that all individuals would be, if possible, identical, including boys and girls. But the area of political action, and I won't draw it on here, but just assume a circle of political action in which you have government, individuals acting in there. But you also have at least two other groups, really three others, voluntary associations, which I'll say no more about, corporations, and communities. And if the liberals destroy communities for the sake of the individual, and the conservatives destroy big government for the sake of individuals, you're going to have an area of political action in which irresponsible and immensely powerful corporations are engaged in opposition to individuals who are socially naked and indefenseless.
Hello, my McDowell brothers.
Socially naked and defenseless, where eventually all people will have to depend on the corporate structure to survive. See this? So they would move us eventually out of what? Self-reliance. With our own businesses, with our own farms, with our own everything, our own property. And we thought we were coming up in life, getting a corporate job. But it was to separate us from the land, separate us from our community, so that we'll become dependent on the corporations when it was all over. And what happens when eventually they pull back all the jobs and give it to the outsiders? Now you see why men and women have to come together and understand that we've been programmed against one another, and I'm going to get there. But we have to know what their plans were from the beginning at a time when our people were united, more united in the world. No matter where we were at that time coming out of the civil rights than at any time in history since the time we lost Jerusalem. All right?
Brothers, back again for another program. The clip that you just heard was from Carroll Quigley in his 1976 lecture at Georgetown. In it, he discusses or describes how the right and the left stripped power from individuals and leave them vulnerable to the corporate oligarchy in the United States. This clip sets the tone for the series of videos of which this will be an introduction to, called Feminized America.
Feminized America. This was their plan to take total control. A man on his knees, helpless, with a woman on top.
No means no. Yes means yes. Violence against women. Sexual harassment on the job. Verbal harassment on the street. Rape culture. All these terms are familiar to every man in America. These terms and policies make up the fabric of a feminized America. From the billionaire, the athlete, the politician, down to the average Joe and the bum on the street. All men are affected by these policies. Even the little boy in kindergarten cannot escape this. And the fact that all males are held under the scrutiny and suspicion by feminized America.
Hold up. None of the males can escape this, not even the boys in kindergarten and grade school. And it's clear that there's a move to destroy the man, especially the black men, when no one is doing anything about their future leaders, the men who are reading on a 6th grade level or less. Only to be able to, down the line, state there is no good, smart men who are educated that's fit for me. You see how this is a circular quandary we're in? Without anyone saying, well, let's stop. Let's begin to reverse this. Let's not be celebrating it the other way around. Right? Let's go again.
And the fact that all males are held under the scrutiny and even the little boy in kindergarten cannot escape this. and the fact that all males are held under the scrutiny and suspicion by feminized America. Men are considered guilty until proven innocent in the court of public opinion. The slightest slip of the tongue can put a man into PC hell. He can lose his reputation, his money, and his job. The attitudes and policies over the last 50 years have upset the fabric of the society. These things have turned the male-female dynamic on its head and forever upset the balance between men and women. What used to be a benevolent patriarchy has become a vicious matriarchy, hostile not only to men, but to male children. It has created an alpha-female, beta-male dynamic. The result has been a high percentage of divorce, a low percentage of marriages, dysfunctional families, massive out-of-wedlock births, and 1 out of every 2 children raised in a single-parent household.
Listen to this.
Pro-socialist president. FDR. To understand the social fabric that we live in, we have to go back to when the fabric was first woven. Back to the 1930s New Deal under FDR. FDR was our first pro-socialist president. Because of the Great Depression and the harshness of capitalism, there arose amongst the people a great dissatisfaction. It had to be dealt with. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt adopted European liberal socialism to satisfy the masses and quell a potential uprising. Social programs like Social Security, aid for families with dependent children, and housing projects were started. Under FDR, the U.S. undertook a massive redistribution of wealth and satisfied the masses for a time. These policies, along with the outcome of World War II, allowed America to experience an almost golden age. Peace and prosperity reigned among the masses. The middle class expanded, and a lot of social ills were dealt with. There was peace among the classes. With social harmony at home, America was able to expand its empire and influence globally. Pax Americana became the global mean, and it was enforced by the satisfied American drones who carried out the policy. For the next 30 years, America was in relative social peace. Marriage rates went up. There was a baby boom. Suburbs grew. All was well. Then came the 60s. The baby boomers came of age, and the willing drones of the World War II generation gave way to the questioning and discontent of the baby boomers. The 60s were full of social unrest. This all culminated with the protest against Vietnam in 1968 to 70. In 1968 in Chicago, the socialist left order was overturned. 2 years later, under Richard Nixon, the protest against the policy on Cambodia, culminating with the incident at Kent State and the National Guard firing on students, the conservative right order was also overturned. A new policy to pacify the masses would have to be found. On May 4th, 1970, the incident at Kent State shocked the nation. The anti-war protests had reached a crescendo. The baby boom generation was angry and fed up. Could this be 1968 all over again? 2 months later, in July, the legislation that would eventually become Title IX was introduced into committee. Coincidence? Title IX and the policy of equity was the first step away from the old patriarchy. It was a systematic social engineering of women and girls, but it especially addressed the problematic males of the baby boom generation. Title IX and its sister companions slowly spread out and systematically took power and control out of the hands of males and placed it into the hands of females. The feminist policies we have become familiar with were born from this legislation. Shepherded along by both right and left, it had the desired effect of satisfying the females and pacifying the males, making willing drones of both.
Hold up now. Pacifying. Hold up now. There's one thing that jumps out here.
And the females.
And this was the right and the left, right?
It had the desired effect of satisfying the females and pacifying the males.
Satisfy the females and pacify the males. Right? We hear terms like, and I can understand it to some degree, happy wife, happy life. We started hearing this. We started hearing things was more so towards female. But then, so that the man cannot actually revolt altogether, you'd have to pacify them. So we must be able to give them something for that outlet while taking power from them. But what is it doing to both?
Making willing drones of both.
Making willing drones of both. Where they both can be controlled by the by the social engineers. When a man is operating out of his God-given nature, he can be controlled by an outside source. So as it is with a woman. Right? So as it is with a woman. Right? Did someone send me something? Any of you? Oh, you sent me something? Okay, you just sent that. You want to say something, Gadja? Gadja, you can say something if you like.
I'm sorry, man. My mic's on me. I was just trying to unmute it just then. I mean, I'm just listening, man. It's like a lot of things coming into my mind. One of the things is that the conscious community and what they push, the woman is God. You get me? It's like everything to turn upside down what the Most High institute. You get me? And it you know, Elder, I had a conversation just yesterday saying, yo, listen. And my sisters them out there in it, let me put this out there. This is not me anyway at all coming at any of my sister them. And I mean sisters them worldwide. I'm not talking just my sisters of nation, I'm talking my sisters them women in general. And I had this conversation, I think it was with Rawchaa yesterday, and I said, yo, listen, Ak. The system set up a way so much, right, that when a man acts a certain type of way, like speaks a certain way,
yeah, he
is regarded as aggressive, he's regarded as toxic, he's regarded as all of these things. And you have to ask a question now, who would come up with something like this? Because this can't be just something generic, you know. This must be a social construct coming up. It's like, you know, I can remember my grandparents. Don't want to go off too much. I can remember my grandparents. And yo, there was, you know, there were men. My grandfather talked with there was no mistaking in what he was saying. And then we say, oh yeah, granddad don't have no filter. But granddad never really took care what anybody thought. Especially when he got to a certain age as well. He was saying as what it is. I'm saying, no man, act right, fix up. You get me? Hey boy, you understand me? He would come at you like that. So you're listening to this right now, you can hear it. It's the social engineering that they've been doing and working on for the better part of 100 years.
Yeah.
You understand? I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it here. And you think back to the Willie Lynch letters, they reverse the roles of the men.
Hold up. You're jumping in front of me now because I got it laid out. I didn't tell you the outline. So let's not I already got that in tow. But
all right, cool. Let me relax. I got some stuff here. I said
no, duly noted. All of this going to come out because you should hear what I got everything on bullet points. So work with me. All right, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Right? But great points. Great points. Thank you. All right, let's jump right back in. Fair use. This goes out to Black Gnostic Speaks.
As with any social instrument, the baby boom
So they passed Title IX.
Define the males, making willing drones of both. As with any social instrument, policies have a tendency to go beyond its intended effect and morph into an institution. It takes on a life of its own. So too has Title IX and the feminist agenda of equity gone beyond its intended effect of empowering females and pacifying males. It has morphed into an institution that lives, breathes, and operates for its own sake, and not that of the society. The institution of feminine equity, in its desire to expand its own power and its own importance, has grown from being contentious to draconian, and now it threatens to upset the balance in society and rip the fabric that society is made from. So what do you get when you design and socially engineer a policy that runs counter to the way human beings have worked for thousands and thousands of years? What do you get when you socially engineer boys and girls to operate opposite their nature? You get what we have now. You have a breakdown of society, and you have people, men and women, rebelling against something that they don't feel is natural to them.
Right? Now that's some good points, right? Now we're going to hold off and we're going to go here now.
I have been so wrong.
All right, hold up.
About
Not you. Now, we have to slowly through education and program in Hollywood and others to have men and women believe that they could operate contrary to the nature of traditional men and or women as a form of control. But eventually, it will come to an apex where society is toppled in on itself. Because men, the traditional sense of men, are needed to defend a nation. And a feminized man cannot defend a nation. See? So I know it seems all good to turn the balance to give women everything, to show that they can do anything men can do, but without actually showing forth that there's a consequence to pay for that. They never tell society, what are we losing with this imbalance? Are you with me here? So now, this is John Taylor Gatto. Academia, they told us the whole time that they would aim this towards the ghetto. Hence the reason there was a such thing as white flight during the time of desegregation. So that the white children or the people who could afford not to be socially engineered could escape for a time. How they would psychologically, physically, and otherwise target our people with this experiment. Fair use for educational purposes only.
Dozen public essays.
Let me go
to
back.
The Prussian.
I got to put it up because, all right, 1 second. I'm going to show you, we're going somewhere with this. Listen to this.
Fichte wrote a series of, it was over a dozen public essays to the Prussian king from, let me say 1808 to about 1818. They're called Addresses to the German Nation. And the provocative event that set the first one off was the Prussian army, which was the Prussian economy, renting soldiers, stealing other people's stuff, had been whipped by Napoleon's amateur army at the Battle of Jena in 1806. And Fichte said, it was because this demon.
Now try to work with him, because he speaks with a little slur, as if a little impediment, as if he recovered from a stroke or whatever the case is. So I hope you could at least, let me turn him down a little bit and hopefully you can hear it more clearly.
Demon imagination was.
Hold up, demon imagination, listen.
18:6, and Fictus said it was because this demon imagination
It was because this demon imagination
was loose among ordinary soldiers, and in situations they would override the orders from headquarters about what to do, and that's why we lost. Now, what should fascinate anyone listening is that's exactly what the so-called liberal philosopher Spinoza in Holland had said in 1690 in a book called Tractatus Politico Religico-Politicus. Tractatus Religico-Politicus. Spinoza said that the ordinary population was so psychologically diseased, murderously so, there was no way to heal it. Just as Fichte, 125 years later, said,
now listen to this, that society was so what? Psychologically diseased, murderously, so there was no way to heal it. You know, everyone is talking about, well, mental health, how I'm taking care of my mental health, right? Everyone has a diagnosis of some mental illness, right? And we don't attribute this to operating for generations outside our natural nature. A woman having too much put on her, and to a degree that she have to do everything like a man. Well, that has a psychological impact on her and the children who watches her. And vice versa when it comes to a man. If we buy in to the psychological engineering, they literally make us crazy. Okay? It's insane for a man to be operating with all his power and testosterone and strength, but yet nothing in society that will allow him to have that outlet to actually exercise the power the Most High inherently gave that particular man. It drives a man crazy. Women, the same. When you deal with contrary of the soft nature that the Most High intended for you to have, and have to operate to do everything as if you were a man. For all intents and purposes, you're going crazy. See? And I'm just showing you what they're telling us they have done to us. By incentivizing us, if we operate according or contrary to the nature God has given us. They'll incentivize us. They'll reward us. They'll give us degrees for it. They'll give us jobs for it. As long as we keep what? The social engineering going so it can negatively affect our children. These people go way back and tell you how they've always controlled societies. Listen.
To heal it. Just as Fichte, 125 years later, said there was no way to heal the disobedience gene.
Everybody and their mother, even online. It's an open discussion now of something that we used to hide when people saying, well, I'm doing something about my mental illness. I remember we kept that stuff quiet. You can have an uncle who was out of his mind and all that, and your aunt upstairs taking care of her, bringing him food, you know that he lost his mind, be it after the war or anything else. That wasn't nothing that you would divulge before and shame your family with. We sucked it up and took care of him, but we knew to keep mental illness private. Right? Now it's celebrated. I have a therapist. I'm getting my mental health together. Outright telling people that I accept my crazy. Instead of understanding that we were socially engineered against our nature, and that is what made us crazy, and there's only one way out, and we're going to talk about that in one moment. Solutions.
People who thought for themselves. Calvin said the only way the elect, he called the saved, the elect will ever be safe because they're outnumbered. So how?
I want to also make it clear in the chat, because we buy into the social engineering if we just say there's a focus on hating men. If you take the strong nature, the innate nature that the Most High have endowed man with, away from him, and he's feminized, it's not just the men under attack. They hate the women too. Because where's their protector? Where's their husband? Where's their defender? So we have to get out of this thing, because to make it think it's one side or the other side, they will focus on both. See? So when we get into this thing about women hate men, we lose sight that us saying that is also showing our psychosis. Because if you lean on either side against nature, it throws everything out of balance. It's an attack on man and woman, male and female, boy and girl. That's why I'm letting them tell you what their plan was. And we buy into it to take sides, a man army against a woman army, which also feeds into the psychosis to show that we're still under their control. And it's natural when we realize what it is to have outlets to get over the rage, to understand that we've been what? Tricked. So there's a natural progression that goes with realizing, yeah, they do have women against men, and it isn't right. But it comes a time that we have to graduate beyond that emotion as men to understand how to what? How to bring things back in balance. Right? That's what the Most High intended for us to do. All right? So let me continue with this.
The only way the elect, he called the saved, the elect will ever be safe because they're outnumbered so heavily.
Hold up. Here's some good stuff here. Listen, he's talking about the elect, the elite, who are only to protect themselves alive long term against a threat that they know would eventually come from within society, from the ghettos that could oppose it. Listen here.
Just as Fichte, 125 years later, said there was no way to heal the disobedience gene in people who thought for themselves. Calvin said the only way the elect, he called the saved, the elect will ever be safe.
The elect, the only way the elect, which are the elite, the only way they'll be safe,
because they're outnumbered so heavily, is to set up a system of universal compulsion schooling with the intention of destroying the imagination and filling the head with garbage.
And filling their head with garbage. The Department of Education.
School systems.
Oh, yes. So this was all socially engineered. Look. Because they are outnumbered so heavily, speaking of the elect who's seeking to protect themselves from the population that outnumber them, because they're outnumbered so heavily,
Set up a system of
they must set up a system
universal
of universal compulsion.
And that's why when you take your kids and you homeschool them, it's such a big problem. Them demonize you for doing that, because you taking your children out of the program that they have instituted there within them church and school systems. It is man, deep.
And think about it. It's not just putting them in the school to be fed the garbage. In order for you to go to school, there's paperwork you must fill out to have a medical procedure given to your child. And we don't know the long-term effect of that. We don't understand how that psychologically play on this geoengineering to turn boys into girls and vice versa. They're telling you the hub they would use to institute the divide between men and women. They would use the school, radicalize the children against the morals that was instituted in our homes, believing in God and the Bible. See? Socially engineer us into a what? A community of unbelievers who have lost our way. That was their plan. See? At the end of the day, we need to turn out educated, dumb people. See?
They give you a bell, they ring a bell, you get up and eat when they ring the bell, you sit down when they ring the bell. That's all it is. No, there's no constructive, like you said, you have these guys going to school and reading at a 6th grade level, 8th grade level, they set it that way. You with me? And I think you highlighted this to me one time, Elder, like, yo, check it, with men, it's normal, if you were to put men in a room, it's normal where the man them would sit to the back and they would encourage the women to come forward. So the man them taking a back role, and really the man them should be up at the front defending against any threat.
Yeah.
And them things start from school. Like, I remember that in school. Yeah, man, you go to the back of the class. You get me? I remember that. Like, listening to this, man, I'm just, yo,
hey, man, they thought of everything.
Yeah. This elder, right? And I guess we're gonna get to it. But this is not a man's design. Man never come up with this. There's a realm behind this. You get me? No, you get me? Rockefeller, right. Them never that clever to set this up.
Yeah.
You get me?
Yeah.
And Sigmund Freud and all of these psychopaths.
Okay, we're gonna get into it. Hit the like button. But they're telling you what they've done. In fear of what would have happened if they would have allowed us to stay segregated, believing in God with a foundation of what? Of God as a foundation through biblical moral values. They know they couldn't contend with it.
Yeah, man.
It would keep us together, and the families, the husband and wife, would have something to not just to fight for, but to die for.
But you know, Elder, when you look at even the role in movies, Hollywood, and you see them put them segregation movies up and people fighting to be integrated, it's like, yo, this don't make no sense. The people were better off apart, like segregated. They was better off because they were doing their own business. They were doing, you understand me?
Yeah.
They were doing them own thing, and if, like I say, eventually studying God for themselves without an outside influence, they would have caught on to the truth a long time ago, and they know that. So if you keep the poison running, they have to be involved in giving the poison.
Yeah.
So let us keep a system. Let us portray like the fighting for.
You went out, Gadget. Gadget went out. He'll come back. Hold on. Go ahead. You back? You back now? Go ahead.
Yeah, man. I'm saying that portray an image like people fighting to be a part of something, and then that's a brainwash image. When the people them were better off, it's like I heard a question asked on the internet the other day where a guy said to them, so tell me something. If is it DEI, if DEI was in basketball, right, where they had to fill a quota of a certain set of people within that quota, how would basketball be? And the guy danced around the question still, but the point he was making is that, listen, Israelites make up the sports. They are the most entertaining. They are everything. So if you had a system with just them, where you had the Negro baseball league, a basketball league, everybody would be over there. The entertainment, the clubs, the nightclubs. Like, when last anybody listened to any Chinese music, any new, you get me? Like, who's listening to that? You get me? We're listening to music, our music. It's entertaining. It's vibrant. It's life.
It has
so they
spirit.
Have to,
Go ahead.
Exactly, the spirit, the food that we cook.
Yeah.
You understand me? Even when them said the soul food, even the soul food them was the trash. Yo, it still tastes good. Yo, it was vibe. You get me? When them Jamaicans, they're not promoting it, but Jamaicans.
I don't want to get too far off the beaten path, guys. I know you're going, but go ahead. I'm gonna let you flow a little bit more, but I got to get back into this.
Yeah, just saying, man, that even when we do unrighteousness, like I say, them jerk the pork. The pork tastes good for those who eat it. You get me? Not me. I'm just saying that spirit. So you have to get in the way of that. You have to stop that, because these people are naturally connected to God. We pray, are naturally talented, gifted. So you have to get a way to go in there and poison it. Yeah. And this is the social engineer that they've been doing, to poison that. And we have to get in front of it. Anyways.
No, you good. You got many points you're going to bring in. I'm not going to stop it, but I want to make sure I get all this information out. And I would like to also give an example so people don't get insulted when I say dumb, smart people through their colleges, right? How do you continue this particular indoctrination to have it continue? You incentivize and you give degrees to clinically crazy nut jobs, right? And this is how you do it. Who gonna fight against this gender stuff that now everyone is butting up against, right? Who's gonna actually disagree with it if someone gave you a bachelor's degree in gender studies and gender studies and fluidity, and you get a certificate for that? So now you have all the credentials to actually promote the benefits of transgenderism. And now it's a part of your being based on someone gave you a certificate to say, you know what, this makes you more knowledgeable concerning this than any other people. And now just put this person in society and give them a professor role in a school.
Yo, deep.
Right? Without even showing the consequences of someone now who's been educated. Now they're teaching your children fluid studies because they got a bachelor in gender studies and fluidity. What the Hades is that? That was their plan. Now listen to this. Listen to this. Hold on. Let me finish it out. Hold on here. Where Lawya? Right there.
Compulsion schooling with the intention of destroying the imagination and filling the head with garbage. Spinoza said the same thing. Fichte said the same thing.
The clip that you just heard was from Tragedy and Hope magazine's Ultimate History Weekend with John Taylor Gatto in the year of 2012. This sets the tone for our next episode. Hello, my Micto brothers, back again for another episode of Femini. Was that for the first time in history, the living standards of the masses of ordinary people have begun to undergo sustained growth. Nothing remotely like this economic behavior is mentioned by the classical economists, even as a theoretical possibility. While the Industrial Revolution made life better for the masses in the West and made Western countries rich and powerful, the opposite end of the coin was that the technologies that came from the Industrial Revolution were disruptive. It reshaped the jobs and the working life of people. It brought people from the country into an urban environment. It reshaped.
Now check that out. Corporations moved us from what? The community of family, from the South, into what? Into the corporate structure. When we began to lose that sense of community working amongst ourselves, right? Separating us from the soil, from the people we were placed here to protect and love. The corporations meant to separate us from our regular nature as men and women by giving us so-called jobs. I know a lot of people down in the South who sold their homes that's worth millions now to come work in a factory or work here in the North. And while we were coming here to get jobs, they went back there to grab the land we vacated. Nothing to leave our children. Folks, man, they thought the whole thing out. We rushing to get jobs and get the American dream and with the suits and going with our briefcases on to the corporate jobs, looking the part as an upstanding, successful American, while they do an end around to go back to get the property that was left by our aunts, uncles, mothers, and fathers, pennies on the dollar.
Our family life, our physical environment, and ultimately our culture. So much so that the governments and leaders that manage the masses have been struggling mightily ever since to keep up with the changes. While it made our rulers rich, it also made the people struggling with this change to be discontent. If you remember from our last episode, we talked about how Franklin Delano Roosevelt used socialist principles to pacify the angry masses when the ravages of industrial capitalism became too much. And you remember the Pax Americana that endured for roughly 30 years until the baby boomers. We're now going to put a spotlight on this transition period, this mere 10 years that took us from the golden age of post-World War II into this modern feminist era we find ourselves in. To understand the 60s, you have to understand the baby boom. And to understand the baby boom, you have to understand the demographic cycle. Now, I go into demographics in detail in my earlier video. So if you want a further understanding of what the demographic cycle is about, then refer back to that work. But here we're going to go through it briefly. This chart comes from Carol Quigley's book, Tragedy and Hope. And the demographic cycle is simply how a population changes as it industrializes. And Carol Quigley divides the demographic cycle into 4 stages: primitive or pre-industrial, transitional or prime, C, which is fully industrialized, and D, which is geriatric or post. And you can see how the age distribution changes between the 4 of them. But we're going to concentrate on the 60s because the baby boom is during the transitional cycle. A B or transitional cycle is the demographic explosion where you have a lot of babies that survive into adulthood. And you have a doubling, an almost doubling of the population. And if you have a lot of people in their prime, those are the childbearing years for the women and arms-bearing years for the men. As you can see by this chart, that the transitional or B cycle represents a period of change and upheaval. If you look how industrialization diffused from where it started in Western Europe and spread eastward, you can see how the change in power from one segment to another. The B cycle with the many young men in their arms-bearing years is a period of change. It's a period of upheaval. And you can see it lasts for anywhere from 30 to 50 years. So you can see that the B cycle the transitional cycle is a very, very busy and unstable time. It's a time for change, and that above anything else represents the 60s. Here we have a U.S. fertility chart spanning from the years 1927 to the year 2007. And it's plain to see the demographic explosion that we talked about previously. This is the stage B that Quigley so eloquently explains in his book. These are the children that survive childhood. This is the baby boom that we talk about. You can see it starts in 1945 with this massive jump up, increases, and then it starts to tail off in 1965. But you can see the massive hump that the baby boom generation actually caused. To understand how the baby boomers...
Now let's deal with that for those who just come in. They felt alarmed during that time period of civil rights because our people were having a lot of children. My mother was the 14th child, okay, the baby of 14 children born to one man and one woman in North Carolina. Her father was a preacher. And what I'm mentioning was really regular amongst us in the South, to have a lot of children. See? And they seen this as a threat, especially being unified coming out of the civil rights movement.
Demographic explosion worked its way through the population over time. We're going to use what we call a population pyramid. This is a population pyramid of the United States beginning in 1950. And to understand what a population pyramid is, we're going to give a brief description of it. It's broken up into blocks called cohorts of 5 years, and also blocks of male and female, with male on the left and female on the right. And
then out of nowhere, they give us all this money for these great schools and all this, and then we're hearing about what? Well, we must make sure all the children are vaccinated and all these others. When the family before us, our mother and father being 14 in a home and all that, even though they didn't have the schooling we had, wasn't subjected to all of that in the South. So let's put 2 and 2 together, right?
At the bottom scale, it gives you either a percentage of the population or the number, so you can measure each cohort. Now, the first full cohort of the baby boomers was
now, I'm going to go back to this because I really want to jump to this. Now, the white women who was responsible, really, they spearheaded the feminist movement, are now coming around, talking about the ill effects and consequences they didn't know would exist past their 30s and 40s. When they were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going into the workforce, in the prime of their life, had the prime look, walking into the office, no one could tell them that what? It all would end abruptly with them sacrificing everything. And now they want to do an end around to try to tell the same people they convinced to follow them that what they were doing was dangerous.
Right.
Now they're going to come. In their prime, you couldn't tell them nothing. Go girl, woman power, all of this. I'm living my life. I can do what a man can do. Only to end up miserable at the end of their lives, not realizing that they were also being socially engineered. Listen to this. Fair use.
Sets up an interesting discussion. So you said, I was so taken by our childless women ruining the world that I plan to incorporate the dialogue into a chapter/essay for the book you're working on. I heard a lot of the cause of the problem put on men. I agree and have experienced this, but would like to explore how feminism destroyed the courtship that much more directly led to marriage and family formation. Born in
Very, very seldom do you hear women put the blame on themselves. Okay, most times women put the blame on men because they can, and women don't like to be shamed. Okay, they don't. Shame is kryptonite for a woman. Accountability is probably second, but shame is probably first.
1961, I experienced firsthand the revolution from moms at home to moms at work, from courting commitment to courting instability. I've toyed with writing a memoir called My Dumb Feminist Life, which would examine the choices I made in fealty to feminist narratives and how self-sabotaging so much of it was. So
now she's talking about how she self-sabotaged the future, not realizing she'll have more time living years beyond her 20s and 30s than in her 20s and 30s. Sacrifice the golden years of retirement to have a man and all that with children to celebrate for only 10 or 15 years of happiness. And then, with no man to help her pay bills at the weakest time of her life, when her health is going backward. Oh, now you're going to tell us. I'm
so interested to explore your perspectives on this, and I'll let you just open it up. What's kind of
her?
Do you want to say a little bit about yourself first, and kind of lay out a sort of the arc of how you've evolved in your thinking?
Well, one of the things that struck me about that particular conversation was, it resonates because I wound up childless myself. And
in all due respect, sometimes it seems like one don't come to the realization until the looks department wanes immensely. When you're on the downside of your looks, now there's a come to quote unquote Jesus moment. And I think not only was I tricked, I tricked myself. Now here's a woman who didn't have any children. She's not going to say how many abortions she's probably had.
But I also noticed, and I'm thinking you're all a little younger than I am, right? When were you all born on the panel?
Let's go back. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to let it play.
And if you don't mind, I'll just read real quickly the paragraph that you sent me, because I think it really sets up an interesting discussion. So you said, I was so taken by our childless women ruining the world that I plan to incorporate the dialogue into a chapter/essay for the book you're working on. I heard a lot of the cause of the problem put on men. I agree and have experienced this, but would like to explore how feminism destroyed the courtship that much more directly led to marriage and family formation. Born in
very, very seldom do you hear.
I know what happened.
Two of them are a little bit older, but still probably just, and kind of lay out a sort of the arc of how you've evolved in your thinking.
Well, one of the things that struck me about that particular conversation was, it resonates because I wound up childless myself, and it wasn't necessarily intentional, but I also noticed, and I'm thinking you're all a little...
She ended up childless herself, chasing the life of a man to compete with men.
A little younger than I am, right? When were you all born on the panel?
I was born in the mid 70s, and then another one of the girls is the same age as me, and 2 of them are a little bit older, but still probably Gen X.
Yeah. So I was struck by how the dialogue was. I couldn't find a good man. I couldn't find a man who would commit. And this is how I wound up like this. And then, I think one person, forgive me if I can't remember everyone's names right now, but I watch every episode, and the discussions are all so interesting. But I was thinking, I know what happened because I lived through that change. And it's sort of like, if you
got to remember, the boomers lived through the change, okay? We didn't cause the change, but we lived through it.
Look at the French Revolution, the people who were coming of age right as the Reign of Terror starts would know something more than the people who are living in the aftermath and grappling with that. So my trajectory, my coming of age completely coincides with the sexual revolution when things really changed. And I like to say, and I have said to my students probably at my own risk that TV in the 60s was very family oriented,
Yes.
very much about
Very much so. Very much so.
being a good civic citizen.
Yes.
The morals were all, I would say, fairly universal.
A lot of y'all don't even understand those times. The Waltons, Little House on the Prairie, even Good Times. It was all about family, father in the house, mother, right? With a moral standings, with a moral foundation. And under the FCC rules, guess what? Even if there was a point of intimacy at that time looking at TV, you didn't see it on the television. But okay, this is where it leads, right? But you couldn't see skin and all this on the television because they weren't going to break the moral fabric that would lead to having young boys raised in a home with something to die for. This is how you get people who grow up and would put their life on the line for the sake of their country. You had something long-term to fight for. So they made sure we're not going to disturb the men like that, because who's going to fight for us if we don't give them something to strive for? Family. Now check her out now.
So how to be a good
The Brady Bunch and Father Knows Best and My 3 Sons and shit like that. Yeah, very much so.
good person, how to handle the town bully.
See, but I'm glad he mentioned that, because they started switching it. At the time, they would destroy our families in the 70s. We thought that this was something that was normal amongst them, but they were looking to project that on us. It used to be what? At first, it used to be the Partridge Family, the Jacksons family, right? We also had Little House on the Prairie. There was no such thing as promoting broken homes until the Brady Bunch came on the scene. That's something new. A woman who comes in with 3 of her daughters from a broken family, with a man who comes into what? The family with 3 of his sons from a broken family, and subconsciously programmed us to believe that that was normal, when it was aimed towards having us change what kept our community together. It was going to affect us, not them. A matter of fact, if you look at the actors of the Brady Bunch, okay, it came out clear that the father of the Brady Bunch was openly gay, okay, who played a heterosexual man. And that the maid who took care of the children, when you do the research, was an open lesbian woman that was known amongst Hollywood. So automatically we have these dynamics of sexualism changing the traditional dynamics to have us accept something less than what God intended from the beginning. Moving the goalposts, right?
Mayberry RFD, family. And then we start getting into relaxing the codes, and now there's murder and single police women, Charlie's Angels, which was a huge influence.
A huge influence, right? And my believe it or not, my grandmother loved Charlie's Angels. Black women love Charlie's Angels and love
well, not just black women,
strong women. Okay, black women love that shit.
Women in particular love Charlie's Angels. It wasn't just no black women.
We also had the pill, and so this just.
In other words, and this I did a.
We also had the pill.
I did a short.
You know what? Let me find the video so I can just hit it straight. An ex-feminist perspective on relationships. One moment. Let me pull it so we can hear this without the commentary in the middle. All right. Let me see. Bear with me. An ex-feminist perspective on relationships. All right, I think this is it.
They used to have.
Yep, here we go. All right, this so I can avoid the commentary to hear exactly what they're talking about here.
I'm Leslie.
The time I reached my adolescence, if you look at the French Revolution, dialogue was, I couldn't find a good man. I couldn't find a man who would commit. Mm-hmm. And this is how I wound up like this. And then, I think one person, forgive me if I can't remember everyone's names right now, but I watch
for educational purposes.
Every episode, and the discussions are all so interesting. But I was thinking, I know what happened because I lived through that change. And it's
so she know what happened. She lived through the change. So she was lying to other people, claiming there weren't any good men. So to absolve herself or not to look like what? An outcast being single. See? A young woman in her early age, there's always someone that's looking to snatch her up, marry her, and just go on with life. So that's one thing. There is no good men. Even she's admitting. Was a lie she was telling people.
It's sort of like, if you look at the French Revolution, the people who were coming of age right as the Reign of Terror starts would know something more than the people who are living in the aftermath and grappling with that. So my trajectory, my coming of age completely coincides with the sexual revolution when things really changed. And I like to say, and I have said to my students probably at my own risk that
at her own risk, because she's not supposed to let the cat out of the bag. That we're being programmed and are incentivized as professors in school to teach children to operate against nature and to embolden women to be like men and challenge men and vice versa.
TV in the 60s was very family oriented, very much about being a good civic citizen. The morals were all, I would say, fairly universal, how to be a good person, how to handle the town bully, Mayberry RFD, family. And then we start getting into the relaxing the codes, and now there's murder and single police women, Charlie's Angels, which was a huge influence on me. And it just completely changed. And by the time...
And I wanted to bring this forth because a lot of people, when it comes to the negative of feminism, everyone want to lay that at the sisters or the black woman's doorstep.
Right.
Okay? When here it is right here. They already said that, listen, we understand that we're gonna break the world to where we'll need a reset. I'm gonna play that a little later. So they had to have their women buy into it now, but now it's a game of musical chairs. Now that we're at the end of their social engineering, everybody now, and not just black women, white women, are looking for those who have what? Who have the high earning potential that they can get in the front of the line to snatch the men, the few that were able to make it through the engineering. If you feminize so many men, do all these negative things to men, there's only a small pool of men that women will see fit to be with. So now these same women are doing an end around, confessing, and now they're going to stand in front of the places where our sons are succeeding now and wait near their locker room or while they going to school or tech and all that after having a hand in ruining the number of good men and women that would be here at the very end, like it was when our parents were seeking relationships. So don't forget, when they begin to apologize and admit what they're doing, folks, they're doing it for their own benefit. It's not to help us. Okay? They're now tipping off their daughters and aiming their daughters towards the men who can take care of them. If they've ruined society, they know which men are left that can actually take care of their families and daughters. And that's why you see an uptick in all the good men that's Israel, our people. It's no coincidence that there's other women next to them hooking arms with them. They've been sent there. See how it works? So why am I saying this? The Bible tells us the Greek seeketh wisdom, but Jacob seeketh a sign. Only when something hit us dead, in the head, and we're suffering, do we say, well, okay, I think I need to change something. Not Esau. When Esau start talking like this, they're coming with solutions amongst themselves to get the small pool of men that's left. And they don't care what race they are. Okay? Listen to me clearly.
I reached my adolescence. Now there is abortion. And I even remember I was sitting on the toilet when I heard on a talk show in the next room that my mother was listening to that now, Roe v. Wade has been passed. And I remember thinking, oh, good, I can do whatever I want.
Wow.
And we also had the pill. And so, it's brand new. And when something is brand new, people tend to react to it, overreact to it. It really completely liberated me and my friends as teenagers into basically having a lot of casual sex.
Mm-hmm.
And it even seemed that you were supposed...
See, back then they said outright what it was. Casual sex. Today we say we're dating.
to, like the arbiters of correct opinions were imposing this on us. Because I remember asking myself, and I know other women have said the same thing, why am I doing this? I don't really like it. It makes me feel bad. I'm also, regardless, sort of garnering a kind of a dubious reputation. But then I'm wired like that, and I can't seem to extricate myself from this habit. And, you know, all of the...
And there's a clean way of saying that, you know, she's cutting loose in the dorms and every other place.
Advertising, much of what I was reading in teen magazines was sort of promoting this, you know, you don't have to live like your mother and you can live like a man. And another...
Hold up now. You don't have to live like your mother. You can now live like a man. They've been socially engineered into this to operate contrary to nature.
Anecdotal.
Because if you start to think you can act like a man, then it won't be too long before you think it's okay to have a woman. Especially when there's a lack of men you've destroyed with the same geoengineering from the other side of this. See? And then what? The numbers of lesbians shoot up exponentially.
Evidence, story, anecdotal stories. Anyway, little lack of sleep last night. I had 5 friends that I hung out with in high school, and we called ourselves the Coyotes. And our motto was, we can do what men do, and we can do it even better.
Lord have mercy. You ever heard of those, elders? The Coyotes? I had to snap back on that one. My chair, I had to snap back my chair on that one. I wonder what the Coyotes was doing. Hold up. I know it's against God. I know that.
Sleep last night. I had 5 friends that I hung out with in high school, and we called ourselves the Coyotes. And our motto was, we can do what men do, and we can do it even better.
Lord.
And we would drive down the main street,
remember that movie, Coyote Ugly?
Whistling at guys, and, you know, drinking a lot, and getting ourselves in all kinds of sexual trouble. And recently...
Boy, she has a clean way of delivering just straight satanic smut. Let me go back here. I think y'all missed this.
Drive down the main street, hooting and whistling at guys, and, you know, drinking a lot, and getting ourselves in all kinds of sexual trouble. And recently we, you know, a few of us got together, and we were reflecting on that, and we realized that this was a very short window of time, because AIDS comes along in 1983 and changes everything. So I would say that people born between, say, 1958 and 1965 are the people whose life story sort of goes alongside this.
Now, they also engineered this when she aged out with Sex in the City, to have another generation who would suffer under this psychosis. Right?
Change. And in the essay, A Requiem for the Patriarchy, that I sent to, in the 60s, it really was like there was a dad in every house. There was only one household where there was no father. That mother was divorced and had a daughter named Tammy, and they lived with her grandparents. I am not going to say that those marriages were all happy marriages. I mean, even in my own household, it wasn't a love match by any stretch of the imagination, but absolutely it was a home. And I was a very observant kid, spent a lot of time alone watching everybody. And
I'm glad she mentioned that what made it a home is that they their parents were together.
Hey, and Elder, just on that as well, I was just coming in to say that they paint an image, right, within media, social media, of everything in the house must be hunky-dory and happily ever after. Nah, man, it don't work like that. Struggles happening within families, things are not always right. That's what makes a family. That's what I say at the end of the day, what's the testimony? What's the legacy at the end of this? You get me?
Yeah.
And they use that to destroy the family. So when people start to go through little topsy-turvy, little things it's not fitting the social program narrative that they've been fed through the movies and all of that. Like the movies you're talking about, Sex and the City, and you get me, that the Bridget Jones Diaries and all of these garbage, rubbish movies out there and things that they've been pushing through the media. Yeah, it don't fit it. So no, people have to understand that. We have to understand that, families aren't perfect. Like you said earlier, you have an uncle upstairs, we're sick. You get me? Mental health problems. But we kept it on the low. We never publicize it. You understand me? Things going on within the house. It stayed in the house.
Yeah, we give him his oatmeal, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? A little TV up there with the rabbit ears, with the hanger.
Yeah, man.
Straightening it out so he can get channel 6, and we was cool.
Yeah, man. Or we kept it in that's a family, you get me? People, everybody have a family, everybody have a family structure that, and I tell you what, man, looking at it even from the lens of being in the truth, like I'm analyzing my family, I'm like, wow, the truth saved me, because, it saved me. Yeah. Looking at it, that having it's the truth, and just the knowledge of just the outside of the social, what they try to socially push on us. The truth takes that away, and you can see the thing for what it is. Yeah. You get me? And that is what.
Now, there's one point I wanted to bring when she says, even though our house wasn't perfect, I was raised with a father and mother. We had a home. Now, the home used to be what? A goal, a benchmark that a father could use to show that he's ready to take care of a family. That was a goal. That's what made a house. That's when you celebrated buying a house. Now I hear people say, I got my house and I'm a young homeowner with no family. So how is this an accolade? How is that something to celebrate? When usually, that's why people saying, well, there's a lot more women buying homes, because men understand that's a big tax. If I don't got a family, I'm gonna minimize my finances by having an apartment until I grow into a relationship that now there's a need for a home. That's when it's a goal, not to say that you're a homeowner.
And to add to that, Elder, right?
Yeah.
Add to that, a man can live out of his car.
Yeah.
A man can live out, literally live out of the car. When a man looks to get a home is when he's looking now a wife, children, something to protect.
Something to grow his family with. Homes had purpose outside of just claiming that I'm a homeowner.
Yeah, man.
Right? Yeah. So that's how backwards they've become, where you have people who have all these rooms with no people to fill it, with no person to fill it, talking about, I've accomplished something. Well, where's the family? The family is what gives you the mind towards home as a goal. That's how twisted they engineered us. But I'm coming back, because now we're going to deal with solution in a moment, and I'm going to open it up for you all. All right? Thank you, Elder. Let me just get through this one part real quick. Great points. I'm going to cut y'all loose.
And I would say that in most cases, that was the sense that every one of those houses was a home. And for the most part, the mothers were all in those homes. Mm-hmm. And then the no-fault divorce thing comes along, and it's like everybody sort of jumps on that bandwagon. And by the time I get into high school, there were the kids whose parents were divorced, and those were the cool kids who could do whatever they wanted because nobody was around to watch them. We were going into those houses and smoking pot and drinking their parents, drinking their mother's
The kids wild.
alcohol. And I would say that those are the kids.
Say what you said again, Elder.
I said, yeah, the kids do what they want now. The kids are running wild because there's no father in the home now to enforce discipline and reel it back in. That's the purpose of the father in the house governing the children. Kids will run circles, children will run circles around mothers, but they won't try that with the dad. They're not doing it. We never did it.
Yeah.
All my mother had to do was say, yo, I'm going to call your father. That's it. Done. the principals, the teachers at school know that, yo, listen, the father, tell the father. Once you tell the old man, it's it. That's it. I had an incident one time in the town where, I was acting a fool. Owner came out and saw me, and I was acting a fool. And then by the time I got to my house, he was there talking to my father. I never knew they were friends. You get me? And I got my ass handed to me for that. And you just know, you don't push boundaries, man, when it comes to your father.
Let me tell you, I want to stay on it, but since you have one of your father's stories, and I'm thinking about my dad, I'm like, out of all the things he could have brought to chastise me at school, right? Because he told me, don't let me come up there. I'm going to turn this thing out, right? And I'm like, and I'm thinking about, out of all the stuff he could have grabbed on his way to chastise me or to whip me, there's some switches on the tree up there that he could have got on the way because there's trees around Duckery. He has a belt on his waist. He could have easily used his belt. Man, this guy comes to the school. I'm sitting in the principal's office. He got a bike in a tube. He has a bike in a tube, and I'm checking out the whole zone because you know the part that you put the air into. He got that at the top of the situation. So he strategically made sure the metal piece wasn't in his hand, that it wasn't rubber, that I would get a little of that metal work. And man, and I'm thinking, I'm like, man, there's many, he had to strategically think this out with all of the chastisement tools he could have found on his way to school. And he settled on this. Man, let me tell you, hey, I thank the Most High because if it wasn't for it, I probably wouldn't have lived to the age to be able to teach where the Most High would have guided me to be where I am.
Con.
Okay.
Con.
But yeah, I mean, you know what I do. I like to illustrate things. And I was a child. I always like to look into how things work. And I'm sitting there, not only am I thinking about the whipping I'm about to receive, because yeah, he fired me up. But I got to think about, I know there was many things he could have gripped up before he came into this office. I can think right now, after taking a snapshot on my way out of the house, how many things he could have grabbed that could have been a more lenient chastisement. That's what I'm thinking. How did he come up with this one? Right? But let's get through it real quick. Hold on. And I'm going to let y'all flow. Just let me get through this. Only a couple of seconds.
Kids, when I look back, who didn't really fare off very well. So, I'm grossly generalizing, but, on the other hand, I think I'm observing a trend. The breakdown of the family, the sort of permitting, getting out of commitments and not seeing things through. And I think where we are today is in a habit of not trusting that you can get through a bad period with a spouse or a partner, and see it through to the end. We are now wired to get out. Mm-hmm. And I've done that myself many times. And when I look back, I say, you know, the one marriage that I got out of, I really think I shouldn't have done that. I never really did any better. And, you know, and I made these
That's another lie, to think that there's somebody that's going to come along, and not to say it doesn't happen all the time, but there's a greater chance that you'll have regret of losing that person who you know cared about you than the person you run into. Now, sometimes it works out where a better person is there, but it's far in between. Because men are born to take care of things. That's the innate spirit of a man. And then you find out not too many men can be like us. I mean, not too many men can be like the one I had, who was a provider and cared for me and my children, right? I'm going to get past
Choices by rote, because I was listening to this other, you know, these sort of voices up there who are telling you what you're supposed to feel, what you're supposed to want. And now we have social media doing that. And, you know, some of the things I did were really incredibly callous and very much anti-family formation, anti-life. And, you know, that was the theme of the essay. It just seems that we are being guided in that direction, to move away from all of the kind of social mores that encouraged us and facilitated family formations and producing life.
Well, it's quite a retrospective, and your perspective is really fascinating. And it kind of seems like everybody has to want to change that altogether, in a way, because you do
hear what she say? Everyone is going to have to want to change it altogether. That means everyone is going to have to be on board and realize that they've been affected by this in order to change it. And if not, the train is going to run off a cliff. Okay? It's either we are advancing and becoming better, or regenerating and or becoming worse, which leads to hell. All right? And I'm going to talk about that solution.
You have these cases of men who have trouble finding a good partner, but want that more traditional life.
And this is why it's hard for a man to find a good partner. But men don't mention it. Sometimes men just settle with what they can get, because finding a virgin is almost unheard of. Okay, you can forget about trying to find a virgin. So automatically, men who even young men who want a family for themselves and an untouched woman to grow with, it's an impossibility where a man have to settle for a woman that's already been pair bonded with another man. So men settle. But she's coming here and saying, well, listen, it's time for all of us to come to a resolve together. Because it can't happen where some want to change this and others are celebrating the downfall of everyone, of all of society. That's being engineered from the top. For those who missed it, the Democrats and Republicans are working together to actually engineer this America into the ground, to the point where there's no morality left. All right?
And women who want to find a good partner but have trouble finding someone, like the women on that panel discussion you were describing. A couple of them, their story was, yeah, I've been married, but my partner never wanted kids and wanted me to work. And, you know, it wasn't something I could just do, or I couldn't find a stable relationship where it felt like it would be safe to bring a kid into the world and not end up a single mom supporting my child. I didn't want that picture for myself. And so, you know, where do we go from this point, or maybe this is too soon in the conversation to ask next questions.
Well,
but
it's
rather,
interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I have a professor that I'm going to bring on in a couple of weeks from Philadelphia. I'm going to have him come on here as well as in the academy. I'm working on it now because they're not just talking to be talking. As a professional who is teaching studies on relationships within a known college on how to, guess what? He was teaching the nature of a black strong man and how to be agreeable to catch that man. He thought that this would be a way, being a man coming up in the hood and grew to understand social dynamics, he thought this would be a way where our sisters would be lined up to learn about the men they said they were looking for. Folks, I'm going to have him on in a couple of weeks. Guess who was, it shocked him that all of the seats he had there as a professor, a black man teaching, did this so that black women can understand what they probably don't understand about black men. And there was no seats available, and there was no other women in the class but white, Asian, and Latino women. That's what he stated. He said it blew him away. They were waiting in the line to get into this class. Now, of course, it wasn't a major credit, but the fact that they were there twisted him up. So one of the women were leaving the class one day, and he asked I think it was a white young girl, "Can you stay back for a minute? Let me ask you a question. Why are y'all in my class?" And it was like, well, it's interesting. I just wanted to find out certain things, and, I'm kind of seeing somebody, that's on a football team or who is in STEM or whatever the case is. Right? Learning in school with a class on how to understand the nature of a strong black man. They're in class. So these people aren't just talking, folks, because they have a change in conscience all of a sudden. This is a dog whistle. It ain't about just outing feminists. They have alternatives in their little private powwows on how to get in the front of the line for the small amount of men that's left. Right? Now let's deal with solution. We all know about the Willie Lynch letters. I don't got to rehash everything in it, but it was about, and somebody, every time it's pulled up, some people try to say it's a forgery, try to debunk it. It doesn't matter whether or not you claim it's credible. I know everything in it has happened and is happening, which makes this document factual when it comes to how slave masters can program slaves and how they do it. And I want to go right down here, right, to this part here. Then I'm going to open it up with you, Elder Lawya, and others.
Yes, sir.
And this was back then. For fear of the young black male's life, that's after beating a black man publicly or killing or shaming a black man publicly, it would put a psychological imprint on the slave woman. For the fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent. Right? So she'll train her son not to be a go-getter like Esau's sons, to stay next to mama and stay home. Something might happen to you, might get locked up. You're going to stay next to mama. While his competitors are making it happen. Right? But physically strong. So even though he's docile, he's physically strong. How to make a slave. Right? Let me get it here. Again. Let me read it. Right here. Let me get it here. Now we can, hold on, let me get it up here. For the fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent. This is why no one cares that our young men are reading at less than the 6th grade level right now. But physically strong, he can still be used as a mule to work. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. You got to go to school, girl, get an education, do this while holding the boy back without even realizing it. This is part of the engineering that they put in place that now affects even their women, to why society is unrecoverable. What have you got? You've got, I'm going to say the black woman. I'm not going to use the N-word here. You got the black woman out front and the black man behind and scared. This is the perfect situation of sound sleep in economics. Before the breaking process, we had to be early on guard at all times. Now, we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. We don't have to do anything. She's the guard for us in the society now. He cannot get past early slave molding process. He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. By the time the black boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force. He's used for working. Continually, though, the breaking of uncivilized, savage black people, that black man, by throwing the black female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing of the protective male image, where there's no example of a strong man who can protect his family, and by creating a submissive, dependent mind of the black male slave, we have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever. So this will happen when the white man isn't oppressing anyone. In its absence, the cycle continues. Unless what? Unless a phenomenon. Woo! So they knew there is a skeleton key for this. Unless something happens, unless there's something that's outside the laws we understand. Unless a phenomenon, and I submit, folks, the truth is that phenomenon. Unless a phenomenon occurs and it reshifts the position of male and female slaves. We show what we mean by example. Take the case of the two economic slave units and examine them closely. Folks, they were paying this guy, Willie Lynch, to speak to slave owners all in the West, even over in the West Indies, on how to train their slaves due to an uprising of rebellions at this time. He says, y'all doing it the wrong way. I'm going to show you how you can pay me one time and you'll never have to worry about a rebellion again. All right? Now let's talk about that phenomenon. Elders.
Yes, sir.
Elder, Elder Lawyer, you've been quiet, so I'm going to hand it over to you first.
Yes, sir. All right. Before I go in, I was holding something. I'm not sure if you still want it out of Maccabees.
Okay, let's get it out of Maccabees. Let's get it.
All right. First Maccabees 1 and 41.
First Maccabees 1 and 41. And this is lending towards what we mentioned earlier, right?
Yes, sir.
Where Quigley said that we must become one people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's read it real quick. Let's read it. Maccabees in the Apocrypha. Let's get it. 1 verse, Elder?
41.
41. Moreover, let's do it.
Yes, sir. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
That all should be one people. Read.
And everyone should leave his laws.
He don't care what race or country you came from. If you're an Israelite, you must cast off your culture and the laws that was given you through your forefathers. If you're Asian, you have to cast off the values and culture you had from Asia and assimilate yourself into the program, the order. Read.
So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
Read.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion.
So the one world order following government, folks, is a religion.
Mm-hmm.
When they say I'm being patriotic towards the state, that's a religion. Because you're choosing the culture of your home country above your nation. Read.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath.
And profane the Sabbath. So the whole plan was to bring everyone into an order where there would be what? One mind. A hive mind controlled by Satan himself. Right? Now, I just want to play this real quick, and then I'm gonna lean it back over to you, Elder. Since you read that, sir. For people who probably missed this earlier in the broadcast. But thank you for holding that, because that ties things together. Right?
Yes, sir.
That is, individuals and the government. There have been numerous books published with such titles as Man versus the State. I know 2 of those. They both appeared, I think, in 1960. We hear about big government as a threat to the individual, and so forth and so forth. Conservatives now are telling us that we must curtail government, cut government spending, cut government powers, reduce government personnel, for the sake of making individuals more free. Liberals, on the other hand, are still telling us, as they have for a long, long time,
Democrats,
that in order to make individuals free, we must destroy communities. By communities, I mean villages, ghettos and cities, ethnic groupings, religious groupings, anything which is segregated. We must destroy them. so that all individuals would be, if possible, identical, including boys and girls.
Look at that. Including boys and girls. The plan of the Democrats. Huh? Quigley said that they would do this, folks. Carroll Quigley in 1976. And look at where we are. Go ahead, Elder.
Yes, sir. Starting off in the book of Psalms 82, verse number 5. Okay. And at any point, Elder, you can jump in and elaborate.
Break it down. Psalms,
yes, sir. The book.
Let me get it. Psalms 82 and 5.
Yes, sir.
Let me grab it so they'll see it. I'll read it and you can bring the points.
Yes, sir.
Psalms 82 and 5. It reads, they know not, neither will they understand.
Right. So many people are going to hear what we're bringing out tonight concerning the programming and the philosophies of liberalism, socialism, women's liberation. They're going to hear this and think that we're anti-woman. Why? Because the Bible says they know not, neither will they understand. So understand that many people will not get this. Many people will not understand this. This is for those who sigh and cry and are sick of how things have been going, are sick of the abominations that have been committed in the midst thereof. They're tired of seeing broken communities, broken homes, broken families, right? But for the rest, they'll never understand. Go ahead.
They walk on in darkness.
Why won't they understand? Because the majority of the world is in darkness. Read on.
All the foundations of the earth are out of course.
And according to everything that has been brought out tonight, I'm pretty sure we all can conclude that the whole earth is out of course. You have women operating in positions and in roles of men, and you have men operating in the position, in the role, in the spirit of women. So now the question is, how do we get here? Let's go real quick to the book of Matthew 13:24.
Matthew 13, verse 24. Let me read it.
Yes, sir.
Matthew 13 and 24. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while the men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the household came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares?
Right, and this goes into what you were mentioning earlier in regards to how you were raised coming up. Certain principles and values and morals that your generation had and that the previous generation had. So now the question is, what happened? Where did all these ideals come from? Where did all of these ideologies come from? Where did these philosophies come from? Read on.
28. He said unto them, an enemy have done this.
An enemy have done this. An enemy came through with all of these ideologies and sowed them within our minds, using his television, using his movies, The Burning Bed, The Color Purple, Waiting to Excel. You mentioned earlier, Sex in the City. He put it in the music. He put it in literature and writing with Elle magazine. What's some of them other teen magazines?
Cosmopolitan.
Cosmopolitan. That's the one I'm looking for, right? So he used these different mediums to do what? To sow bad seed amongst us. Who did this? Not a liberator, not a freedom fighter fighting for your freedoms or your liberation, but an enemy have done this. And this is how we must view those who continue to peddle these ideologies. So now going back, let's go to the book of Habakkuk 2 and 15. Now let's see how the enemy works.
Okay.
Because you mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, Salakia, sir, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Habakkuk 2:15. You mentioned something very key earlier about how the enemy works. He pushes the programming, and then he'll turn around, or she will turn around and come back and point out all of the mistakes or all of the negativities that came with the programming. And the Bible identifies that as well. Habakkuk 2 and 15, sir.
I got it. Habakkuk 2 and 15. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also.
Right. The Bible says, woe unto him that giveth his enemy drink, and does what?
That puttest the bottle to him, and making him drunken also.
They put the bottle to you and almost force the drink down your throat. They force the women's liberation down your throat. They forced these ideologies down your throat. Again, using the various mediums that were aforementioned. But then what? After they force it upon you, after they sell you on the ideology, after they make you think that this is the best thing since sliced bread, what do they come back with?
That thou mayest look on their nakedness.
That they may come back and look on your nakedness. So they make you drunk with falsehood, but then come back and point at the state of your communities. Point at the state of your women. Look at your woman in single homes, raising these terrible children. No man in the house. Men are in prison. Drug-infested communities. Well, hold up. We can point to instances in all of these cases where you were at the root of all of this, pushing the ideology that led to the single family home, that led to the men in prison, that led to the drugs in the community. You did this. Read on.
Thou art filled with shame for glory.
You are filled with shame. Now we're shameful people. The glory we once had is gone. Read on.
Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory.
Right. So drink, and let your foreskin be uncovered. In other words, drink, and now let the world see your nakedness. So now we can laugh at you. And so now we can put you in the statistics. Salakia, sir, go ahead.
No, I'm glad you brought this out, because they're quick to brag about certain things as if they're naturally stronger, wiser, or more intelligent. Look at our IQ numbers and look at yours. Look at how many of our children graduate with high IQs and test scores compared to yours.
Right.
As if they didn't have a hand in this social engineering. So guess what? You're bragging about nothing. There's no accolade that you've achieved without systematically harming others. And guess what? We're still up on your neck.
That's right.
Multiplying above you with high intellect and knowledge from the Almighty that destroy the knowledge that comes from your dumb schools you're looking to radicalize people with. Now you let the cat out of the bag, Elder Lawyer. They did. They didn't set up the school to educate the people. They set up the school to tell you part of their psychological weapons against us was to do it through the schools, was to harm us through the schools. They let the cat out of the bag for those who missed it earlier. The schools were never meant to allow us to be able to, what? Intellectually challenge them. You see the nut jobs coming out of school right now? This is what their plan was for us the whole time. But I digress. Go ahead, Elder.
Yes, sir. Just a few more. Ephesians 6 and 12. And this lends to what Elder Rawchaa mentioned earlier.
For what?
Right. And this also leans into what we must do and what we must recognize, understanding the game that has been played on us.
Okay, great. Ephesians 6 and 12 reads, we get it here? Ephesians 6 and 12. For we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Exactly. We're not at war with each other. We're not at war with flesh and blood. As we read earlier, an enemy have come among us and sold these philosophies among us. And if you think that this enemy is operating solely on his mental aptitude, on his intelligence, you got to be out of your mind. When they talk about how you brought this video out years ago, stating that even crack cocaine was created in a laboratory by a university out in California. I forget exactly which university that was.
Yeah.
But if you think somebody was just sitting around playing in a laboratory with chemicals to come up with crack cocaine, which would later totally and utterly decimate and destroy the Black community, you got to be out of your mind. It's spirits driving and working with these people so that they can operate and be calculating decades in advance, centuries in advance. That was Carol Quigley. What was that, 1976?
1976, Carol Quigley.
1976, speaking about the blow by blow, what it would take to actually destroy and decimate any level of what they call tribalism or community or family. So they're way in front of the ball when it comes to this understanding on how to operate from one generation to the next. And again, this is not by chance. This is not just intellect or human intellect or human mental aptitude. They are being led by spirits that are at war with us. Again, we're not at war with each other. We have to recognize who the true enemy is. 1 Corinthians 8 and 2, Salakia, sir.
Okay, 1 Corinthians 8 and 2, let me grab that. 1 Corinthians 8 verse 2 reads, and if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know.
Right. So understand that we don't know anything. We've all failed and come short of what it is to be a mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, families, communities. So once we come to that humbling point to understand that we've all fallen short, now we can start to rebuild on a sure, strong foundation. The Bible says we must become babes again. We must relearn what it actually means to be family, what it means to be a community, what it means to be a nation. All of that has to be relearned and retaught. The Most High also says that we must acknowledge our iniquity and that we've walked contrary to him. We've walked contrary to the principles and the morals and the values that preceded us, where family was able to stay together, even though things were not perfect, even though we didn't have everything, even though there were, as with anything, idiosyncrasies, but still we were together. Still we had family. Still we had community. We got to get back to that. And with that, I rest my case.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. And you said if you think man came up with this alone, you're out of your mind. And that brings me to mind what was written in the book of Jasher when the fallen angels began to teach women that it was a potion they would give the women that would stop them from having babies in their course. That means when they're ovulating and all these others and getting ready at a time to be able to produce, the potion stopped them from having children.
Right.
Birth control. So that goes to the point where this is some old science that they're utilizing through birth control that was pre-flood. It even led to the Most High destroying the earth through a flood. They were doing this before the flood, giving women a potion to take so they couldn't have children to keep their shape. That's in the book of Joshua. So how do you turn a woman into the mind of a man? Well, you make it where she can choose not to have children to compete with men in the workforce. And that has consequences, because that's dealing with all types of that. Now it's coming out with white papers, the psychological effects it have had on women who've taken birth control that they didn't tell people.
Right.
And guess what? This is not blaming women, which is showing you what they injected in our society to turn things upside down. But now let's talk of solution. Gaja, you have anything before I bring what I have to
Yes,
bring
forth? Just real quick. If
no,
you don't mind.
take your time. Go on. I'm gonna let you on. Here you go. I know you've been waiting. There you go. Go for it. Do it.
All right, man. Elder Lawya, can you just pull up that what I sent you for, in the book of Adam and Eve real quick, please?
Gone. Absolutely.
The water.
All right. The 6th chapter.
Yes, sir.
All right. We're in the book of Adam and Eve, chapter 6, verse 1. And Adam said to Eve, "Thou canst not do so much as I, but do only so much as thou hast strength for."
So just a backdrop of what's going on here, brothers and sisters. Adam and Eve. Adam is going to do a fast, and he's instructing Eve what to do. His fast is going to be longer than hers because he's saying she can't do what he's doing. Keep reading, please, huh?
Done. For I will spend 40 days fasting, but do thou arise and go to the river Tigris and lift up a stone and stand on it in the water upon or up to thy neck in the deep of the river.
Go ahead.
And let no speech proceed out of thy mouth, since we are unworthy to address the Lord.
So Adam is saying to Eve, don't say anything. Sorry, Elder. Adam is saying, don't say anything. Go and fast. Go into the water, into the river Tigris. Stand up on a stone and keep your mouth closed. Keep reading.
For our lips are unclean from the unlawful and forbidden tree. And do thou stand in the water of the river 37 days. But I will spend 40 days in the water of Jordan. Perchance the Lord God will take pity upon us.
Come on.
Chapter 7, verse 1. And Eve walked to the river Tigris and did as Adam had told her. Likewise, Adam walked to the river Jordan and stood on a stone up to his neck in the water. And Adam said, I tell thee, water of Jordan, grieve with me, and assemble to me all swimming creatures which are in thee, and let them surround me.
I just stop right there. Just highlighting something, sir. Adam had full dominion of the earth, full control of it. He told the waters to stop moving and commanded the animals to come grieve with him. Adam had full dominion of the earth. That's what we have. Full. That's what we are supposed to have. Full dominion. Keep reading, please.
Not for themselves, let them lament, but for me. For it is not they that have sinned, but I. Forthwith all living things came and surrounded him, and from that hour the water of Jordan stood still, and its current was stayed.
Go ahead.
Hold up. I want to say, you see, even though Eve took of the fruit, Adam took responsibility. You see that? Even though Eve partook of the fruit and gave it to Adam, he took responsibility.
He's a man.
That's a man.
Take responsibility. That's a man.
That's a man.
Go ahead, Elder.
Gone. Chapter 9, verse 1. And 18 days passed by. Then Satan was wroth and transformed himself into the brightness of angels.
So when you read in Corinthians, when he said, no marvel that Satan himself transformed into an angel of light, This is where Paul was getting it from, the book of Adam and Eve. Satan transformed himself to deceive Eve again. Coming like all things are nice and good, and hey, why don't you just have a nice, you don't need a man. You know what you need? You need a job. You should go on the birth control and make sure that you don't get pregnant and don't start a family. And just it's brightness. It sounds good. Get a job and have income and do what you want to do. You don't need a man to tell you what to do. You get me? It's the brightness of it's transforming himself into an angel of light. It's looking good. It sounds good. But at the end of the day, we just heard from the Coyote Uglies that, listen, it's not that great. Keep reading, please.
And went away to the river Tigris to Eve and found her weeping, and the devil himself pretended to grieve with her. And he began to weep and said to her, come out of the river and lament no more.
So it's like you said before, Elder, the enemy, they come and they try to sympathize with our cause. Oh, you're being oppressed. Oh, you might not listen. Yeah, I have a solution. Hear what you do. You understand? You don't need to listen to him. He told you not to talk, but talk to me. You can lie on my couch and tell me what's going on. Tell me all the problems. Keep reading.
Come out of the river and lament no more. Cease now from sorrow and moans. Why art thou anxious, and thy husband Adam? The Lord God hath heard your groaning and hath accepted your penitence. And all we angels have entreated on our behalf and have made supplication to the Lord. And he hath sent me to bring you out of the water and give you the nourishment which you had in paradise, and for which you are crying. Now come out of the water, and I will conduct you to the place where your victual have been made ready. Chapter 10. But Eve heard and believed and went out of the water of the river, and her flesh was trembling like glass from the chill of the water. And when she had gone out, she fell on the earth, and the devil raised her up and led her to Adam. But when Adam had seen her, the devil, with her, he wept and cried aloud and said, O Eve, Eve, where is the labor of thy penitence? How hast thou been again ensnared by our adversary?
Now let me say this. Let me say this on that, because we can't leave no meat on the bone for this one.
There's a lot of meat on this bone.
No, let me tell you, I'm topping at the bit right here. I'm gonna back up and give it to you, Gotcha. I don't even need to put my video up there. Let me make it clear. He's pressing upon Eve every chance he get when she's what? When she's not in the presence of her protector. Every time, that's why they want the woman alone. Women were meant to have a guide. It was meant that way. The Most High set it up that way. And even if they don't want to say that they're going to get advice from someone, even if it's not her husband. They'll listen to other people before making decisions, because there's what? There's an inherent spirit to take advice, to be guided. And Satan understands this. It's in the nature of a woman to take advice. That's why sometimes be acting, well, listen, why don't you make decisions on your own? It's not about that. It's in her nature to lean on to make sure that she doesn't mess things up. So she want to make sure she checked first before doing something, based on what happened with Adam and Eve. And now every chance, and we have to really understand and not ignore this, that every chance Satan gets, he's trying to press upon women to make decisions that would have us go backward. We can't ignore that they're being attacked as the weaker vessel and going to throw it out the window as if she's just a succubus or she's just wicked, and not realizing that at every chance since the beginning, when Adam wasn't around, Satan stays in her ear. We have to acknowledge this if we're going to come to solutions.
That's right.
Still to this day.
I mean, the Bible says give honor to the weaker vessel, but then we attack her because she's a weaker vessel. Insane. And that goes to my solution in a minute, but go on, I'm backing off.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, I'm picking up Elder Rawchaa. I'm picking up at verse number 3 of chapter 10.
Go ahead.
It says, "But when Adam had seen her and the devil with her, he wept and cried aloud and said, O Eve, Eve, where is the labor of thy penitence? How hast thou been again ensnared by our adversary, by whose means we have been estranged from our abode in paradise in spiritual joy?" 11. And when she heard this, Eve understood that it was the devil who had persuaded her to go out of the river.
So Eve realized right away that she been tricked here. You get me? But I want everybody to get this part of the dialogue now, that Adam asks a series of questions here and gets an answer. And this is where I was going, Elder, that this is not a battle against man and woman. This is a battle against mankind itself.
Let me say something real quick, Elder Rawchaa. Someone says we attack because she doesn't listen. See, we can't generalize like that. Why? Because there are women out there that will listen. And it's still our position to show the path, regardless of if there's resistance. But then it's on her. When Christ says, remember Lot's wife? If she chooses not to listen and look back and get destroyed, that's on her. So we have to understand, when we're taking a mindset against all women, even if the majority, a lot of them have been turned left, there's a place for repentance, and we have to be careful on how we deal with them, understanding this as the weaker vessel. Because yes, they've been turned, they're doing wrong, but guess what? We would turn. We do wrong. So these continued finger points is not going to bring a solution. So when I say attack a woman for being the weaker vessel, there's something we can do. And that's what I'm going to talk about at the very end of it. And let's see if men are willing to do this.
Go on.
Okay. But go on. Let me back out now for the last time.
Go ahead, let's pick it up, please.
Yes, sir. Verse number 2. In fact, verse 1, Lawya, chapter 11, verse 1. "And when she heard this, Eve understood that it was the devil who had persuaded her to go out of the river, and she fell on her face in the earth, and her sorrow and groaning and wailing was redoubled. And she cried out and said, Woe unto thee, thou devil! Why dost thou attack us for no cause? What hast thou to do with us, that we have done to thee? For thou pursuest us with
why are you attacking us? What have we done? And this is it. There's a battle, it's a battle against the creation. It's a battle against Adam and Eve. Battle against this is a battle, a war going on from a demon at the highest level. So you say, we're wrestling not with flesh and blood. We're dealing with the highest of them all, the Beelzebub, the prince. That's what we're dealing with. Listen to his response. Listen to the psychopath. Read.
Have we taken away the glory, or thy glory, and caused thee to be without honor? Why dost thou harry us, thou enemy, and persecute us to the death in wickedness and envy? Chapter 12. And with a heavy sigh, the devil spake, O Adam, all my hostility.
The devil like, what are you talking about? Listen to the psychopath. And you remember we talked about accepting blame before, or Adam owned up to this? Listen to what this demon is saying. Check this out. Read.
O Adam, all my hostility, envy, and sorrow is for thee, since it is for thee that I have been expelled from my glory.
So he's blaming Adam that why he's being expelled. But what did Adam do? Listen to this. Read.
Which I possessed in the heavens, in the midst of the angels, and for thee was I cast out in the earth. Adam answered, What dost thou tell me? What have I done to thee, or what is my fault against thee? Seeing that thou hast received no harm or injury from us, why dost thou pursue us? 13. And the devil replied, Adam, what dost thou tell me? It is for thy sake that I've been hurled from that place. When thou was formed, I was hurled out of the presence of God and banished from the company of the angels. When God blew into thee the breath of life, and thy face and likeness was made in the image of God, Michael also brought thee and made us worship thee in the sight of God. And
The
God
devil
the
saying,
Lord
listen,
spake.
check it, sorry. The devil saying, listen, Michael brought us and made us worship before you. Michael said, yo, the Most High said, bow down before my image, which is Adam. That's what they were commanded to do. Now this psychopath, read, sorry.
It says, here is Adam. I have made thee in our image and likeness. And Michael went out and called all the angels, saying, worship the image of God as the Lord God hath commanded. And Michael himself worshiped first. Then he called me and said, worship the image of God the Lord. And I answered, I have no need to worship Adam. And since Michael kept urging me to worship, I said to him, why dost thou urge me? I will not worship an inferior and younger being than I.
That's pride. I see, we get that pride, that puffed up thing. The Most High commanded it. He's not doing it because he believes that he's a superior being to Adam. No humbleness, no accepting that this is not Adam's fault. You know. This is your fault. You were told to do something by the Most High and you refused to do that. How is Adam taking the blame for that? How are you blaming Adam for that? And that's what we get. When you see people come out with no accountability, with zero accountability of how their actions affect other people, then this, you know who your daddy is. You know what spirit you're dealing with right now. This is the origin of it.
Mm-hmm.
Keep reading, Elder, please.
Now, I got to show something, so hurry up. I got something I want to bring some conclusion with this.
Yeah, it's almost in the shadow. So that's a bit of your I wanted to get.
All right. I'm a senior in the creation. Before he was made, was I already made. It is his duty to worship me. 15. When the angels who were under me heard this, they refused to worship him. And Michael said, worship the image of God, but if thou wilt not worship him, the Lord God will be wrathy.
So you said, I'm going to stop it right here. He said when the angels that were under him heard that, they started to rebel. You with me? That's the 1/3 of the heavens that he took with him. They rebel with him. And that's why you have to be careful of, like, when you see certain people start to sow discord and heresy amongst the brethren, it can have an effect. It can pull people out like that. There's an attack. There was an original attack on man, on the image of God, and they went for the woman. Satan care about Edomites or care about these are the children of Adam. He doesn't care about none of that. Everybody's supposed to die. That's his plan. Is death and destruction. Anyways, I yield right there, Sir Elder.
Thank you, Elder. And you can come back in because we're going to talk about solution now. And I want to start it off real quick. Thank you, Elder Rawchaa. Just stay there because we're coming back in. Because some people were saying, well, the majority of black women aren't going to listen. They're hard-headed. They this, they that. Right? Buying into the narrative to allow our sisters to be attacked, even though they're doing wrong. Like we were attacked. And we knew that we weren't all like they were claiming we were. And we understood that what they were saying about all black men didn't apply. But let me say this. Why do we focus on the worst of people when we should be looking for the best in people? Let me read this real quick. 2 Esdras 9:13 reads this. Here's wisdom for you. And therefore be thou not curious how the ungodly shall be punished. Always looking about what people are doing wrong and what's going to happen to them for the wrong. The Bible says, and therefore, be thou not curious how the ungodly shall be punished and when, but inquire how the righteous shall be saved, who is the world is, and for whom the world is created. If we believe that none of them are right, like they're trying to sell to us, then we're not going to see the ones who was meant to be saved through the grace of Christ. And this is not giving anyone a pass. Okay? But we have to understand men and women are different. The Bible says, give honor to her as a weaker vessel. So as a man, even though it would be justified based on their geoengineering, it would be justified carnally if we were to just bash down on them, because that's the trend right now. But here it is. And now we can ramp it up with you elders here. The answer is not really what the women are doing. The answer to this, brothers and sisters out there, listen clearly, is that the man must do something different. Not what the woman have to do. The men have to do something different. Why? The whole programming was aimed towards what? Men not being an authority to oppose evil. We were the target. Women are just a facilitator or the doorway they're using to attack us. So we're asking for what's under us to change. For us to change? That means if we do something different, women have a choice to get along, get on this ark and be saved, or drown. The phenomenon has happened. The Willie Lynch curse has been broken. We know who we are. So us waiting for the woman to change is ridiculous. That's out of course. Well, I'm going to be right when she's right. You're out of your mind. We were the aim from the beginning. We were attacked by Satan through her because we're the threat. And we're waiting for a weaker vessel to change for us to change? Now let's talk about it. If we understand and this is what's good about, that's why I put up these clips in the beginning to show the social engineering, so that we'll have a choice whether or not to go along with it and die, or stand on the ground that the Most High gave us through Christ, like it was before they began to switch things around. Like, for instance, the answer is that a man must do something different, right? Which means men, boys, are to be focused on as priority. And that's not to say the daughters are to be ignored. What they did was switch it. They had the boy passive and would push the woman to be the go-getter with the education. We got to switch that. We have to concentrate on the boys to become go-getters, and the daughters to be nurturers, and to serve every man in the house with her mother. When a mother's in the kitchen cooking, she's in the kitchen cooking. No matter what she feel about her brother is at the table with her father, and the daughter and mother is serving them. See? History taught us this. At one point, things were set up like that. At one time, things were set up like this. Why? Because the women understood in ancient times they had to feed the men and the boys, because the boys had to grow to protect what was coming through those doors. So in our current society, in which after the industrial age, where they have civilized everything, people forgot the reason there was order. Women knew to feed the boys because you wouldn't live too long if the boys in your house wasn't fed and ready for war. That has to switch around. That's number one. Number two, women would change overnight if men weren't what? Incentivizing their folly and funding foolishness. If men decided not to put a dime into OnlyFans, OnlyFans would shut down by tomorrow and the stock would crash through the floor. Men have to set their standard to accept more from a woman than just what's carnal. The carnality is fleeting. That doesn't last. You have to expect more from a woman than what you can get carnally laying with her. And you have to set a standard, which means when you meet a woman, you got to come with the goals of what's to be expected from her. She don't call the shots. You are bringing the program. And if she don't want to get with the program, she's just not the one. There's nothing wrong with her. She's not rebellious. She's not nothing. She's not nothing negative. All these black women, nah. She don't deserve you. So she can find somebody or hope to find someone in a world of loneliness that'll care about her and guide her through this trouble. You're setting the standard. And it's not just because she don't want to get with me, oh my God, something is wrong, these black women. Nah, you don't want to follow me. I'm not fighting you anyway. I don't need to bring a fighter in my house and protect you and to protect everything. Listen, if you want to fight your own protection, hey, shalom, peace. And men got to get out of this thing of thinking it's okay to lay in places that women have provided for them. Whoever provide the home is the breadwinner. That takes the pride from a man when he have to lay up living in someone else's house and the house is in the woman's name. That's emasculating. What was your goal? Your goal is to have what? Your family, including your woman, depend on you. And then if you can have your name on there and put her name on it. This is how you flip this thing around. Now I know society have shaped it where the benefits is really like, it's more beneficial financially long term if we are to deal with it the other way. So I understand if men is still being respected in a home where it's public housing, it's in the woman's name and all these others. But the goal in that house is to put a timeline on how long we're going to be here before you're living in my home with my name on it. Okay? So we'll deal with this right now, but understand, I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable as a man where I have to deal with instability if you get upset and now I got to leave because the house belongs to you. That's emasculating. So I got to get out of anything that compromises me with a woman to counter the what? To counter the engineering that they did to switch roles. I have a set of standard according to the Almighty God. And I have to walk according to it so I can set that standard for everyone else who will be raised in this home. And I'm going to tell you, men, what I'm saying doesn't have nothing to do with women. Once you began to turn the course the other way, you're going to find the Most High standing face to face with you saying, now it's time. Adam is standing on 2 feet right now, next to me like I intended it from the beginning, to guide the family. That's how it works. You can't live under subjugation. Even the scriptures and the wisdom scriptures tell you not to give your strength to someone who's weaker than you. These Satanists read the scriptures and understood how they can drive the whole world into mental illness by changing the roles from either side and just allowing it to work by itself. And we're crazy. You can't blame the white man or anyone else. You are crazy if you will continue, if you continue in it without changing everything back through your power. You're crazy. Everything I just stated have nothing to do with a woman. So if the women are doing all these crazy things out there, right? It really doesn't affect you like that. Why? She's not on your program. She's not going to affect you negatively. It's not in your home. Right? So she'll fall through her own sin. Right? But guess what? When she come to you, she's coming to a man with standards. Oh yeah, here's my goal. Yeah, I already got my house already. You can move in. Yeah, let me make it clear. We can decide to move in, but we're gonna have to do one or two things. Okay? If we all move in and get married and do what the Most High say, I'm the head of this household. So we're gonna go before I come into this house, and my name is gonna be on this house. Period. Or I don't walk in this house. Better yet, let's start something fresh by eventually put that on the market, and here it is. I'll buy the home with you, and our names will be on that. You can't be living up under a woman who have the name over your property. She has the power of your livelihood and where you will lay your head. You have lost power. I don't care how much you try to flex. I'm a man. I'm a man. I'm a man. What have you've achieved as a man to give the next generation? You can't do that if you can't even state that the place you lay your head doesn't even have your name on it. So everything I just stated doesn't have anything to do with a woman, because a woman that doesn't want to do right, it has no effect on a man of the Most High with standards. All right? But I guess, elders, this is a great segue into our academy this coming Sunday. What's the title, Elder?
Let me get that for you real quick. The reason why Adam fell.
The reason why Adam fell, and I'm glad we set it up perfectly to lead into Sunday's lesson. I think Elder Rawchaa let a few cats out of the bag in between that, but hey, I had to let him roll. I had to let him roll because, he's on fire with it. I'm like, you know what? Hey, let's do it.
Yes, sir.
But it's time to stop the finger pointing.
That's right.
And only focus concerning what we can control. So when I looked at the social, I keep on saying geoengineering because we did the weather warfare area earlier. When I see the social engineering, they told us exactly what they did. You got to be insane if you want to continue within the program, and you know that happened from the outside of us that began our destruction. That's insanity. And we can break this. It doesn't matter what we've gone through. Satan want to see us, and want us to have guilt based on our darkest moments. You have women who dealt with lesbian and all these other stuff and believe, okay, this is who I am, that I can't change my nature. That's the devil lying to you. That's the devil lying to you, making you believe that what you've become through hurt and all that is your true nature. When you know part of the sickness and what you struggle with mental-wise is the fact that you're fighting against the nature. You want to be loved like a woman by a man. You want to be cared for. You want to be protected. And you're using this tough, hard austerity to hide the little girl that was hurt. And Christ is saying, well, listen, nah, that ain't who you are. You can have that. They socially engineered you into believing you were supposed to be hard. You're supposed to do this. And Christ is letting you know, it doesn't matter if you sin in the past. You can change and still have that and have peace of mind to get over the mental illnesses they have placed on us through social engineering. With that, there's nothing left to say. Thank you, Elder Rawchaa. Thank you, Elder Lawya. We're going to end it here until Sunday.
Yes, sir.
Shalom, man. Thanks for having me. And just want to drop one more thing before I head out. Off topic, we had a brother that passed in Jamaica recently. Good brother Theo. And I just want to send condolences out to the family and everyone and out there right now, grieving, asking for prayers from the family worldwide. For brother Theo and his family who are going through grief right now.
Who passed? Rawchaa.
Yes, sir.
Who passed?
Did you lose me this?
Yeah, go on. Who passed?
Oh, a brother from Jamaica, brother Theo, passed on Sunday.
How old was he?
So just, tell is like 40 years old.
He got my deepest condolences. My deepest condolences. From what?
He had a heart problem. He had a heart condition. He had a stroke, heart attack last year, and I don't think he recovered from it. You get me?
Okay. Did he come in initially baptized with the issue?
Yes, he was. Yes, he had the issue. It was a condition from before. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me tell you. Give the family our deepest condolences and whatever we can do to send out whatever help the family. Let them know that we're here to help them in every area needed, okay? And I'll reach out.
Yes, sir. Will do.
Also,
but that's it, man.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, man. That was it. I was just saying that. Just wanted to just mention that real quick. You get me?
Okay. And I want to also say that our prayers go out to Dr. Goodman, who've done so much great work to help our people with the herbs for health. Unfortunately, earlier this week he lost his wife. It's a tough time right now. And I'm still reaching out to see what we can do to support him through the grieving process and what he's going through right now. To let him know that the church is here to help him through his mourning. And to make sure that he'll have everything he needs, for his wife, right? I'm trying to give him some space right now because I understand how that's a tough situation, And but all in all, brothers and sisters, put out your prayers for the brother, Dr. Goodman. He's a good man. He's always extended themselves to help members in the church with sicknesses and to heal You know they're doing everything they can to poison us, and he's doing everything he can on the Arab side to counter them targeting us with all this stuff out there. So he's a great man, and our prayers go up to the Almighty, and I pray that the Most High receive his wife in paradise. Okay. Shalom. See you all Friday. May the Most High be with you. Thank you, elders. May the Most High be with you.
Thank you.
And sin not, and keep in mind, the Most High is calling back the children of Israel. That's right. We are the children of Israel. And yes, we're back. Shalom.
Shalom.
In the belly of these great ships we traveled in fear. By the rivers of Babylon we found our brothers here. Rawchaa in Colombia, Reuben from Australia, Issachar, the Mexicans. Highest gathering Israel, Judah, the Negroes, Benjamin, the West Indians, Levi, the Haitians. Highest gathering Israel. In Colombia, Reuben from Australia, Issachar, the Mexicans. That's who we be, Judah, the Negroes, Benjamin, the West Indians, Levi, the Haitians, Manasseh, the Cubans, Ephraim from Puerto Rico, and Valley from the Isles of Hawaii. The Lord is calling back Israel. Zebulon from Panama, Gad, the North American Indians, Simeon, the Dominicans, our highest gathering.